Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today for the Carry and Craft Watercolor Valentine Edition. As always, I have my coffee and my setup. So we will dive straight in today. I know tomorrow is Valentine's Day, so this may be a saving grace for some of you. But I want to go over what's in your kit. You have 5 watercolor pencils, 4 sheets, they're not bent. They're still flat. Sometimes they're easier to work with when they are flat, and the corresponding envelopes. So that's what your kit comes with. And what I'm going to do today is not help you make a card start to finish. What I'm going to do is show you some different techniques, some ideas on how you can create your own, show you how to use the watercolor pencils, and then you're off and running and you can create what you wish, specifically to the people you're going to give your Valentine's Day cards to. So this is more of a technique kind of class rather than a start to finish how you do something. Around your house, you may want to get a fine tip black marker. You may want a white crayon stashed in maybe your kids' or your grandkids' stuff. Other things you may want is if you have a template, a very light sketch pencil if you want that. But I typically do the drawing with the watercolor pencil so my lines disappear. Whatever you wish to do and have on hand, you can. Everything works really well together, and the nice thing about watercolor pencils is they give you a lot of flexibility. If you have a set of pan watercolors that people are more traditionally accustomed to, you can even grab those and they work hand in hand with the pencils as well. Lots of options. But today I am just going to focus on things you can do with these. Alrighty, so let me show you the first idea or technique that I'm going to introduce to you. And this is a way to bring color and kind of an ombre effect to a shape that you may be working on. You will also want, water and brushes and paper towel. So here you can see I'm doing a starburst, and this can be in the center of any shape you want and burst out to fill that shape. I started with the red in the middle. I have a darker orange, a lighter orange, and now I'm just going to continue to sketch out with the yellow, okay? Not being real specific here. The nice thing about watercolors, you don't have to worry about the detail, because by nature, you're going to lose your detail. So don't get wrapped up in making things perfect or whatnot, because it's not going to be that way. This is watercolor, it's flowy. Think of water. Water isn't something you can control. Okay, so what I do now, I've sketched this out, I've drawn this out. I'm simply going to wet my paintbrush. I don't want it too wet. Start in the center. And you'll find that the color gets more vivid. And start painting out. The direction that you were drawing, it is a starburst or sunburst, whatever you wish to call it. Now you're getting into the orange a little bit. You're going to want to rinse your brush off, dry it off a bit, and just keep going. Around and around. And all those white spaces that you had from sketching, those should go away. Whenever your brush gets dry, feel free to wet it. You just don't want it so wet that things run away from you. Last time around, here, and you're just wanting to push this all out. And as I do this, I'm going around and I'm rinsing my brush off more so that you can keep some of that yellow, okay? Gotta be careful of my blue there. Now this looks a little bit more like a tie-dye. Okay, now rinse your brush again and just go through from the center and just kind of smooth everything out. Okay, now also what's cool here is the center looks still pink, and if you don't like how pink that looks, take your pencil even when it's wet and you can go through and darken it up a little bit if you want. if you get too much white or too much pink or whatever, you can go through even on the wet paper and you will be able to use that. So this is a cool effect if that was in the center of your heart and it just burst out in color that way. Okay, so that's one option you have. A second option, and this is one I like to do, it's where I've drawn a bunch of little hearts and I'm gonna paint the space between the hearts with the color I used to draw them, leaving the hearts themselves the same color as the paper. So this is kind of an opposite effect of what you would think. But again, you just put the water and connect the hearts to each other using the water. Now, this takes a little more time and attention. Look like the hearts are kind of bleeding into each other. And if you need to go back, you can see I drew the hearts in different colors so that things could fade in and out of each other. Keep going over them if you want. If you want to maintain a clean line of your heart, you can. Or you can blend in all that color into the water, and all you have is the white heart with the watercolored paper around it. There's something a little different. So it kind of looks like now a rainstorm happened on the hearts. And that's kind of the effect that you want. The colors change as you go down. The hearts have, for the most part, stayed the color of the paper, and you just have this shading of color. The more you take your brush to the edges of the hearts, the more color you will work in around it, and the less detailed the actual outline of the heart is. So that is completely up to you. And with a stiff brush, it's easier to kind of manipulate that. But this is one of my favorite things to do. I did a painting in this idea with ginkgo leaves. And so it was kind of the same idea of leaving the object white and having the color all around it. So the next thing, some of us have very good handwriting. I am not one of those people. However, some people like calligraphy or fancy lettering, those kinds of things. You can do that, also do that with watercolor pencils. What I have done here is I've drawn out the L for love, and then in a different color did the OVE. And what I would do here is I would simply water the purple. Okay, just do the L to kind of smooth this out. And this is where a fine tip marker, black marker or purple marker may work, is then you can then outline it and make it more formal looking. But I kind of like this look. I like the freedom of watercolors, and I like this look because it takes away kind of the structure of your typical lettering. And you can drag this out a little beyond the lettering because you have the color. And you can just have fun with it, or you can write a black L in the structured handwriting and just let the purple bleed all around it. And that looks really neat as well. That has a really artsy effect. I'm not gonna touch the blue. That's just there. Now you can also just do the L in color, and then with the marker go back and write the rest of the word, whether it's the first letter of a first name or anything like that. Next is another way to fill space. We have this area here, we're gonna ombre, kind of the ombre effect. Always start with the darker part, whether it's on the top or bottom, and work your way in that from the dark to the lighter color, okay? And this is super simple. Color in a whole heart this way, and just make the ombre work. Again, go from make sure everything When you get to where the colors meet, you can kind of go back and forth a little bit and then keep moving up. And then let this dry completely if you're going to draw on top of it. At the end, you'll see examples of finished pieces that I've done, finished examples of how to use these in actual cards. So there's that. And that dries and it gets very smooth. And if you want to get rid of those pencil marks even more, just keep going over it. Sometimes you may need a stiffer brush, but that texture, you can always work through it. Okay, there we go. So the final thing I want to show you is you may want to actually sketch and draw something, which is great. And doing that with watercolor pencils, again, it's important to remember you won't keep the detail. So don't get lost in that. You do want to, control for your colors, and that's more of what I would look at. If you look here, I drew a flower, and I've done it all with watercolor pencils. So when I go through and paint them, I'm going to lose my lines, but I'm also not going to have as much definition. So what I would recommend, if you're going to do a daisy similar to that, start in the middle of the daisy, and just do a cone with a flat bottom. Okay, and lightly color most of it in. Okay, but you want to add another color in there. I'm doing pink because pink and orange work well together. Then I'm going to do my petals in this kind of maroonish color. Okay, and you draw the petals individually. Leave a little space. And then you can come down here and between some of them, I wouldn't do it between all of them, but between some of your petals, draw petals coming out from underneath. Okay? Now you got to color these puppies in. So when you're looking at it, the flowers that were on top, not the ones you drew underneath, should be colored first. And we're going to do those, actually, we're going to do those in the pink. Okay? And so anything that would have been technically on top, you color those first. That way in your mind you can keep it straight. Okay? Now the petals that were underneath would be shaded a bit. So we start with just outlining under the other petals with this maroon color, which would give it a shade. And then I always do a little bit on the tips here. Then we can go back through with the pink. And then when you paint it, that maroon color will kind of pull out and in. Connects. Then I'll take the yellow to add a little dimension on the top of the top petals and just touch them here and there. They don't, not necessarily top to bottom, but just touch them so that they have a little vibrancy to it. And then we're going to do a blue stem because that's what I have. And I would just make this, bring this down, and however you wish to do your leaf. I'll do this leaf a slightly different shape. Okay. Underneath, color it, and just do maybe a few lines up here. So that's how you would sketch it out. And the last thing, sorry, that I would do is I would put some dots in your cone as seeds. Okay. That's really how simple it is. Now we go through and add the water. Now for the cone itself, the center, I just dab. I'm not stroking, I'm not dragging my brush. I'm just dabbing it along. Now again, you want to paint what's on top first. Okay, And you see how and always lead the water to the tip so that you have on petals, normally the tip of the petal is the highest concentration of color. So drag your water down to the tip. Okay, you can leave some up near the cone. But you can see as you do this, how your petals start to have depth now. Okay. So what I would do at this point, actually, let it dry. I'm not sure I'd put water on my petals underneath. I may just leave it like that because it adds the depth. And once it dries, I'll do the stem, but I will do a leaf now. So just because it's on there as watercolor pencil doesn't mean you have to water all of it. So as we look through these different kind of techniques and things that we did today, there's lots of different ways to apply them. For example, the sunburst that we painted, that would look really neat in butterfly wings. So if you wanted to do a card with the butterfly kind of flying off the card and doing the wings as the starburst, that would be really cool. Or to do an inside of the heart as that ombre effect that we did with the blue. Make the bottom of the heart the darkest and the lightest at the top, and just kind of fade the colors in. If you wanted to do the open heart concept, I would draw a ribbon or a sash over the top of your card, and then just do the open hearts within that space. So the important thing to remember is to just create whatever Valentine's Day card you wish. Doesn't have to be perfect, just needs to be from you. Thank you for joining us today, and I can't wait to see what you create.